I paid someone $30,000 to spend about 3 days with them in a mastermind event. His name is Chris Lee. He exited his business recently for about $250 million. And in total, through all the businesses that went to mastermind, we had about $1 billion worth of yearly revenue through all the businesses combined. Here's what I learned. So if you stick around to the end, I'm going to give you a little extra goodie for you to be able to keep on your own. Also, make sure to go click in the link in below, and it's going to have a link to my notes that you can go through as you go through this video. In the room, we had about $1 billion in annual revenue between all the businesses combined. There were people all over the place. I was definitely one of the smaller ones, which was interesting to see, and still so much to learn. So I want to just go over and really find some of the things that I learned that made sense to me, that I liked, and hopefully it's helpful for you as well, and you can get the $20,000 worth of value and the 3 days that I spent there all compressed into a very short amount of time, which is not going to be anywhere near the 30 plus hours that I spent actually at the event with the other people there. So just to get off there, I mean, we really started off with very, very interesting energy. And it's apparently people have gone to Tony Robbins events before, and they really liked what the atmosphere was created there, and the kind of sort of the priming, the meeting priming that he had, because the first thing we went over is you can create energy by moving and getting active, whereas if you're just sitting still, then you're more prone to just be sleepy and tired and stuff like that. So if you start off something by moving, movement creates energy, and that's kind of what we started off with. So we did Tony Robbins priming is the first thing we went into, and then we went into red car theory. And the question that was asked is, how many red cars did you pass on the way to get to this event? And a lot of people were like, well, I don't know how many red cars that I passed on the way to the event. However, they said, if you counted the red cars, and now you can look out for the red cars, you're going to start seeing red cars a lot. So we look for what is top of mind and what we're thinking about at the time. And for this mastermind in specific, they asked us 3 questions. What did I want from this mastermind? What are the questions that I want answered? And if I could accomplish 3 things while I'm here, what would they be? And so those are the 3 things that are the questions that they asked, and then I'll kind of answer mine in order. And then that way they said, after you answer these questions, you're going to be able to see what you're looking for. So number 1 was, what do I want out of this mastermind? So a blueprint to building a $100 million company was something I was interested in, and what that looks like to scale. And the next question was, what questions do I want answered? 1 was, how do I identify the right opportunities and put my time towards them? Because you can make more money, you can't make more time. And I was just curious, well, how do you define what goes as a good opportunity for you? Which I did actually get all these questions answered while I was there. There are a bunch of deer going across the way over there right now. And the number 1 is how, the number 2 part of the second question there was, how do I hire the right people? And when I was thinking about like your business, one of the skills you want to get really good at, because the level that I'm at right now and the size that I want to get to, you have to get really good at a couple different things. One of them is most definitely hiring the right people. So I want to make sure that, hey, how can I hire a company, or how can I hire people like these $100 million plus companies do, so that I can grow and scale my business? Number 3 was, if I could accomplish 3 things while I was here, what would it be? Number 1 was have actionable steps to the next 1, 3, and 5 years. So I was kind of just creating a little bit of a plan to know where I'm headed in the trajectory. The next one was, how do I find the right business partners? Business partners are a lot of fun, and I think that the right business partner can make or break your business, just as like the right partner will make or break your business in life as well. And I wanted to know, how do I identify what a good business partner for me looks like? So that was one thing that I was worried about, and interested in learning. And then the last one was scale quickly. A lot of people were like, oh, you just gotta wait all this time and wait before you can get rich, and you can't really scale that fast because of whatever some excuses that people make. And I've had mentors in my life who've told me that, and I was like, it just doesn't sound right. Why is it that all these other companies can scale really fast and I can't? And that's this very limiting belief that many people have, and I don't want anyone to tell you that you can't scale quickly, because it's very possible. I mean, when I started a business, I went from 0 to $1 million in 1 year, run rate, and valuation is technically higher than that. So it's very possible, and I don't want anyone to think that there are any kind of limiting beliefs that anyone else can put on someone else like that. And so that was kind of the first thing that we went into. Now, the next thing was the 6 key leadership pillars. And I will give them in the order that they're presented, not the order that I think they should be. Number 1 is There's also different hand signs for like all these things. And so that's why you'll kind of see what I mean by that. Hand over heart, playful out. And so what is playful out is if I only do one thing at a time, don't do a bunch of things all at once. And don't be on the phone, be present in the moment. So for example, if you're with your family, be with your family. If you're at the gym, be at the gym. If you're working on whatever it may be, work on whatever it is. Don't be distracted, and then play full out. Go all in on this one thing that you're doing. Don't just kind of be scattered and confused and not really sure what to do. So that's what it means to play full out. And these are specific for leadership. So number 2 is one finger clockwise. And this one is, if you do this right now with your hand and you look up, and I'm pointing my finger in the sky and I am going clockwise, and then I continue to spin to my perspective clockwise and go down, and I bring that finger down to my chest, now it's under my chest, it's around my stomach area. And if I look down at that, and I've not stopped spinning the same way my finger, but if I look down, that is now counterclockwise. So number 2 is respect different perspectives, because even though your finger was still spinning the same way, whether you looked at it from the bottom or the top, from one perspective, it looks clockwise, the other one, it looks counterclockwise. So respect different perspectives, and I really like that, especially if you're on a high quality team of people. That's going to be really important for you to know. Now, if you're just starting off, there may be different perspectives. There also may be different ways to do things. But when you're first learning, definitely perspectives are weighted. Not everyone's perspective is equal, but respect all perspectives is a very interesting thing. Now, number 2 is 2 fingers, and it is truly listening. So it's like this, eyes on you kind of thing. I am truly listening. 2 fingers. So this is number 3, and it's 2 fingers. This is why I didn't think this was the perfect way to put this. Now, number 4 is 3 fingers, and this is supposed to be a really pointy butt. So it's supposed to look like a butt, but it doesn't really look like a butt. And it means put your butt on the line. So that means you're all in, and you're willing to take risks, and you're staying comfortable with being in the uncomfortable. And so by put your butt on the line, it's saying your circle of comfort is like a target. And right in the middle is where you're the most comfortable. And then as you go farther outside of the circle, so just imagine a circle that you kind of drew a line for. When you go outside of your circle of comfort, your comfort zone expands and keeps on expanding. And if you put your butt on the lines, that's why the 3 fingers, like I said, it doesn't really look like a butt if you put the American way to put the 3 fingers up, the pointer, index, pointer, middle, and ring finger, then it kind of looks like a very pointy button. So you put your butt on the line, in the zone of where you are comfortable at. So the next one is 5. Number 5 is 4 fingers, and this is trust yourself, trust others. So trust yourself is your pointer finger, middle finger, and then trust others is your ring finger and then pinky finger. Trust yourself, trust others. Do what I told myself I would do and own it. Truth and trust are very important. And we kind of went off on a little tangent there during this one of does loyalty exist in a company? And we went on to loyalty doesn't really exist, but truth and trust are things that should exist and do exist in companies. And then especially trust yourself, trust others. Make sure that you follow through with what you say. So if you are saying something, you need to make sure that you're following through with whatever you just said. Because if you can't stay true to your own word, how can you expect other people to stay true to yourself? Or how can you expect other people to stay true to what you say if you can't even stay true to your own word? So that is trust yourself and trust others. And then if you mess up and make a mistake, that's fine, but just own it. And just that's part of trusting yourself. So even if you go outside of your own, what you said, and for me, my word is extremely important. When I say something in a serious context, of course, jokes aside, if I say something in a serious context, I will follow through with it. What I say is what I will do. And if I go outside of that, then I own up to it and say, hey, I apologize, I made a mistake, here's where I messed up. And that's okay too. That's how you are able to justify and say, I'm following through with my word, and if I don't, then I'm going to have to fess up and own up to it. And it's okay to own it. Take responsibility. It's fine. It's life. It's how it works. So I'm not saying don't ever make promises to yourself, because you will fail and that's fine too, but trust yourself, trust others. And especially if you're on a high performing team, that's very important. Number 6 is 5 fingers. It says be a day maker, be a ray of sunshine. So 5 fingers, high five, that's kind of what that was for. Be a day maker, because if you should be the thing that what other people don't have. And what I mean by that is, if you're in a company that's kind of boring and maybe a little bit monotonous or something like that, if you are the person who always makes someone else's day, who do you think the most unpopular person is going to be in that office situation or in that group setting? Probably the person who makes everyone else's day. So if you be a day maker, and if that's the company culture that you like to foster, what's going to happen is you are going to be a very valuable and influential person to whatever group that you are a part of, if you are focusing on being a day maker. And that was the end of that section. And we moved on to another section about company culture. Company culture is either by design or by default. Now, that's really important, because it can get a bad rep of, oh wow, a lot of these companies, these a lot bigger companies, are like cults, and rightfully so. A lot of these companies, you have to make your culture, so cult, C-U-L-T, sure. Russell Brunson talks about this in his book, Expert Secrets, blue one. And he talks about that you need to make sure that everyone is in line with your culture. And the more that people are in line with your culture, the farther and faster you're going to be able to take your business, group, organization, whatever it may be. A lot of things you can apply, the business-related things to many other things as well. So that is, you make sure that your culture is either by design or by default. And so I went, even before I really should have been focusing on company culture, I was focusing on culture before it was needed for me to do it. And I think I only had 3 employees at the time, and I was still setting company culture expectations because I knew I needed it. A good book for that is Traction. It kind of goes over some good core values, some good mission statements, and that's a great way to create mission statements so that you can start off early by designing your culture. The next thing is, this was really interesting because it was a 3-day event, so we're still on day 1 right now, and the 5 questions that they asked next were sort of meant to make us reflect on ourselves and meant to bond the group together. And if I were to host an event, I would probably do something like this, although I'd make it a little bit more abbreviated than it was, because most people, they took a long time, which is fine, by the way. I think it was great to hear everyone's story. But I also think that if you wanted to take a 3-day event and turn it into like a 2-day event, this is probably one of those things that I would find a way to cut it down. And it definitely helps with group bonding, but when it comes to like the real meat and potatoes of I'm here, I'm paying a lot of money to be in this room with a bunch of other people who have also paid a lot of money to be in this room, then this was not up there on the things that I learned, but I think it's good for creating a very close and tight-knit team. It was a really great team building exercise, not necessarily something that I would put front load in my 3-day mastermind event or whatever, which you got to come to. So 5 questions to be in a group setting is, what was it like growing up? Number 2 is, what is the biggest childhood challenge that you had? Number 3, what is the most impactful life turning point? Number 4, who has influenced you the most and why? Number 5, why are you on the planet? Those are the 5 questions that we went in. And so we were asked the questions, and then later on we came back to them. We all sat around the fire, had a great time, talked, and it was really interesting to hear other people's perspectives. Once again, it goes back to the spinning your finger, just perspectives on life and seeing what created them. A few things that I noticed: most people didn't have an instant turning point in their life. They more had a gradual change into some sort of change that they had in their life. And we'll get to the personality side, but everyone here was very much alike in a few different ways. Then we started talking, and so we were given the questions, and we kind of moved into a little bit about loyalty and stuff like that. And it was, loyalty does not exist in a company, only trust and communication. So that goes back to number 5, trust yourself, trust others, are the 6 key principles of the pillars of leadership. And I did like going over that. I was resistant to the idea first of loyalty does not exist in a company, only trust and communication. And what really sold it to me was listening to the definitions of the words loyalty, trust and communication. When you actually look at that, it makes sense why loyalty doesn't exist, because if things are going bad, then leave the company, right? That's just part of it. And then there really are 4 key areas to everyone's life. So this is a new topic. Letter A is associations. This is either people who you associate with or the beliefs or ideas and concepts that you associate with. It's association. It stands ASEP, A-S-E-P. The next one is S, spirituality. That is obviously what your spirituality is. Letter E is economic, and then letter P is physique. So association, spirituality, economic, and physique. And then out of those 4, which one do you think is the most important? I answered spirituality because I thought that everything stems downstream from spirituality, and even physique is still downstream from, and by physique it's just physical, that kind of thing, but physical doesn't sound as good as physique, so that's why I wrote that. Your physique is downstream from your spirituality. So if your spirituality is not in check, then your physique also can't be in check. And his idea was that physique was the most important, and that if you don't take care of your physique, then the other things will fail, which I do agree with. But I think also if you have good spirituality, you should or could have a good physique. Now, I'll explain his point of view and why I actually like his point of view quite a bit, and why I think it was closer to the way that he understands it is right, but I still think that spirituality aspect of your life is the most important, and then downstream from that can be physique, and should be physique. You should all be working out. You should all be attractive. You should not be fat. You should not be lazy. You should not be sitting around. You should fix your diet. It's very possible. Everyone can do it. Everyone should do it. And if you care about your spirit, then you should care about your body, because they're currently one and the same thing. They can be separated, but they're currently occupying the same area, so to speak. So his idea was, if you take care of your body, that means your spirituality is going to be better. If you take care of your body, your associations are going to be better. If you take care of your body, your economic status is also going to go up, because you're the type of person who likes to take care of your body. Now, what's interesting is I know plenty of people who are very much more wealthy than I am, hundreds of millions, and there are people who smoke a lot, there are people who drink a lot, there are people who don't smoke a lot, there are people who don't drink a lot. So I know that it's possible to do either one or the other. However, I think in 40 years from now, 50 years from now, 80 years from now, whatever it is, you could thank yourself quite a bit for taking care of your physique while you're younger. And so that was really one part that I did like. And it was nice to be around people who are like-minded. So I've been to a lot of these entrepreneur events, and a lot of them, a lot of big cats there, a lot of small cats there too. And it's just kind of weird. And I won't name names, but there was someone else there who was talking about an event they went to, and they went to this island, and there was like the CEO of Airbnb there was like CEO of a couple of other really multi-$100-million companies, huge companies, and this private island, everyone was just on drugs. And it was like, I hated this event because, his words, I hated this event because these are not my people, and I want to be hanging around my people. And so when I went to this event, it was really cool, because the ad copy that the business owner had wrote about this specific event had to do with making a really big business and doing it while you have a family, and also about spirituality. And I think that's really important, because his ad copy was so good that it all attracted the same type of people. So everyone there at the event were family oriented. I think most people didn't drink, and if anyone did drink, they weren't like heavy drinkers. They were just like maybe light social. So it wasn't anything crazy. We were all definitely not the type that would like drugs. So it was really cool to go there and to see like, hey, I know this entrepreneur had this experience with Drug Island. I think that's kind of funny, because it happens. And it was really cool to be around people who are also high achievers, and then also aligned morally with you, because a lot of times you meet these really profound people. They say never meet your heroes. So far that has yet to go wrong for me, but they just never meet your heroes. And I've met some really great people at this event who I all look up to and respect quite a bit in many ways. And they all have the same morals and beliefs as me. And I really like that quite a bit, especially with a lot of the times nowadays it being demonized to be wealthy, rich, whatever, because, hey, God wants you poor or something like that. Some excuse that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I've had it said a lot by people who I love very much, that money doesn't matter. It's not all about money, but you know what? I'm going to check. I'm just going to make sure. You can go ahead and go through that, but I'm going to check. I'm going to make sure that money doesn't make me happy. And when I get there to the hundreds of millions, I'll get back to you and I'll say, yes, it's true. Money doesn't make you happy. I have hundreds of millions of it, and it does make me happy. So like I said, I'll update you when I get there, but that's my opinion. So that was really the 4 areas of your life. And I really want to go back to that because it's association, spirituality, economic, and physique. Those really cool things. They hit me. There's something to think about. And I definitely would like to put that in an event in the future. So when you compare yourself to anyone, it is a defeating attitude. That was kind of what we went over. I don't know how exactly we transitioned to this, but we did transition into this. And it was when you say me, and you're looking at someone who's better than you, you are now putting yourself into a lower position. And so that was really unhealthy. And we kind of talked about why you should never compare yourself against anyone else. And then you're me versus another person who maybe is below me in whatever status it may be. If you look down, it is still a defeating attitude. Can't remember why exactly, but that was what we went over. That's what I have in my notes. And I do agree with that, because if you are constantly thinking, you're constantly social ranking, which happens subconsciously, by the way, and that's totally fine. Like, we all make snap judgments. That's just the way that the humans work. Prejudice saves lives. If you are in a dangerous situation and something doesn't feel right, get out of there, right? Probably not a good situation to be in, whatever it may be. And so I'm not saying don't prejudge people in certain situations, but I'm also saying that comparing yourself is constantly defeating, which is another reason social media is toxic. So I can't remember what they went in there, but we'll kind of just move on to the next thing. So how I do anything is how I do everything. And that was another topic. And I really like this one because I like all these things. As you can tell, there's a common theme here. How you do one thing is how you do everything. I just like that because I'm very thorough and meticulous with the way that I work. And even in the small, silly stuff, I was working on a house project once, and the guy who I bought it from was coming over to see how renovations were going. And he was watching me work, and he was like, dude, this is like pretty cool to watch you work. And I was like, well, what makes you say that? And he said, because you're very meticulous with everything that you do here. And I like that. It was a very interesting compliment, because it wasn't like, oh, good work. It was very much a thoughtful, well thought out compliment that I liked quite a bit. So how I do anything is how I do everything. And really think about it in your life. Are you the kind of person that just likes to half effort things? Well, if you are, why are you doing that? Are you doing the things that you don't maybe enjoy a whole lot? It's interesting because it's difficult for me to explain why I feel this way or why I do certain things. Eventually I'll look back and reflect on it and figure out why I do it. But I think it's been a very key to my success of doing things when I do things very thoroughly, but not letting inaction get the best of me. Because a lot of people, they'll wait for the perfect moment, and there's never going to be a perfect moment. You might as well just take action right away, because, well, there's just no point. I mean, really, just don't do that. So how I do everything how I do anything is how I do everything. And that goes with life, spirituality, economic, and physique as well. Pretty much like when I went through the phase of like, I really want to understand everything about the gym and going to my body and diet and stuff like that, I really got into it. Same thing when I was trying to figure out more about my religion. I just really went deep into it and figured out more. So the same thing with business is when I get into, and I'm still into business, when I got into it, I was like, all right, really want to understand. And then I realized I will never understand everything. And there's so much to learn that this is going to be a great opportunity for me to continue to expand my skills throughout my entire life. So the next topic, which I think was very beautiful, is your goals are your goals, and don't let your goals be someone else's goals. If someone says that, hey, I want a Lamborghini. Well, all right, let's go with a car that's actually good. I don't like Lamborghinis. Let's go with McLarens. McLarens are nice. So if someone says, hey, I want a McLaren or a yacht, are those your goals? Or if you say, I would like those things, are those your goals, or are those goals that you have borrowed from other people? You say, well, this person's successful, or I like this other person, so I want their goals, because their goals must be the same as my goals if I'm to be to where this person's at. So I think that's very interesting think about, is this something that you do actually want for yourself, and why? So for me, it's like, okay, well, I would like to be a part of a $10 billion company somehow from the ground up, startup. That's one of the things that's interesting to me. And, Lord willing, if I live to the rest of my natural life, that is something that I would be, that's my goal. Why do I want that? Is because I want a bigger impact on the world, as big as I can possibly get it. Maybe, we'll see. So those are my goals. And like, do I really want a super yacht? Probably not, because I don't really want to live anywhere near the ocean. Super ironic, I know. I love the mountains, I love the beach, but I don't want to live on the ocean or near the ocean. It has this tendency of, I don't know, just not my favorite place to live. And maybe at some point I will change my mind and go back to that and be like, you know what, having a yacht is pretty great. But until we get there, we'll see. All right, next one. So the dad and son, I have, oh, these are 2 book recommendations. This was a story. So the next thing that we went over was a story, and I won't be able to remember the whole thing, but good and bad things can happen in business, life, etc. And there was this story, and I'll try to do as best a job as I can, and there's definitely a way to look this up. So there was a dad and a son who lived on a farm, and they had a horse in a paddock. And at one day, this was the horse that helped them provide food for their entire acreage, however big it was. The horse ran away. And the son was freaking out. Oh my goodness, this is terrible. This is the worst thing ever. The horse ran away. You know, we need to get this fixed, or I need to go look for it, whatever. But the dad said, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Let's wait. And so the next day, what happens was the horse comes back with a bunch of wild Mustangs and brings back a bunch of other horses. I think that's what they're called. I don't know. So the horse comes back with a bunch of posse of other horses that are just wandered back into the paddock, and the paddock's shut. And the son is like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing ever. Great. We have all this money that we can sell horses and actually make money. I'm assuming this is hundreds of years ago in a different time, in a different land. So, oh my goodness, we can make all this money from all the horses that came by. And the dad said, well, you know, let's give it some time. Let's see how it happens. I don't know what's going to happen yet. And so the son gets so excited, and he goes and says, you know, I'm going to start trying to train these so that I can get them sold. And so when you try to train a horse, you hop onto it, you try to at least, and you try to tame it and hopefully let it become your own. And what ended up happening was one of the horses bucked up and totally smashed one of his legs, like totally destroyed. And so he's just sitting up on the couch or equivalent thereof 100 years ago. And he's obviously in a cast, not being able to work and not able to do anything. And the son is obviously not in a good place. And he's like, man, this is awful. This is the worst thing ever. I hate this. This is terrible. But the dad said, you know what, we'll see. Like, let's just wait and see how it turns out, because it could turn out better. Next week, what happened is the army came by and said, hey, we're fighting a war and we need your son to come and fight this war. And the dad says, well, I can't. My son is currently on the couch, his leg smashed up. He couldn't fight even if he wanted to. And so the son was like, oh, this is fantastic. This is great. And the dad said, we'll see. I don't know what happened after that. I'm sure there's more to that story and then more that you could have. But all that to say, the son is going like this, going up and down, crazy, freaking out. And the father is just very stoic and saying, we'll see. Let's broaden our time horizons here and see if it's actually something that is useful, of value, etc. And I really like that, because a lot of times, especially in business, when I was little, I remember younger in business, not little, I got a text from someone, and there was something going on about I thought there was a violation of like how we were doing our marketing, and I was really worried, like, oh my goodness, this person's going to sue me, my business is over, we have a lot of money on the line here, what's going to happen if I don't get this right? And I was freaking out, and I asked one of my mentors about it, and he said, oh yeah, okay, well that's not a big deal at all. Even if you weren't in compliance, turns out we were. Even if you weren't in compliance, this is how it's going to do. The fine's going to be like a couple $1,000s. You're going to be able to pay it off over a super long time period. You can still do business like it's not a big deal. So I was freaking out. I was like, oh my goodness, my business is going to get shut down and I'm going to owe all this money. I have payroll, all that stuff. And my mentor was like, yeah, I've been through that before. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. So I really like that. And especially in business, we can tend to worry about things more so than they actually are. If we just extend the time horizons, things are going to turn out much better for us. All right, so this is called a boss list, and this was like, we were coming up with 10 things that were really cool that we had done that I thought was pretty interesting, because everyone was supposed to bring forth things that we had done. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this might have been, no, this is day one still, this is day one. So my 10 things were, getting married to a very supportive wife. That was awesome. I think it was very interesting. Everyone's there was either their first or second one was they got married to a very supportive wife. And I think that having that kind of support in your life is second to none, is one of the best things you can do and have for yourself. Now, number 2 for me was I went from 0 to 1 million in a business in 1 year, and I got about a 20x ROAS on my advertising dollars in that time period, which is pretty good. The next thing was being in Army infantry. Loved the infantry, a lot of fun there, real high speed, a lot of fun. Number 4 was learning a new language in 6 months, learned it in a very short amount of time period. Number 5 was being able to buy a house at 21, was very exciting for me, and I love that I was able to do that. Number 6 was I invested pretty much all my profits on education. So any profits that I had in my business that I could have taken out for owner's draw or whatever, spent it on new cars, fancy watches, etc. I had pretty much put all of it towards education. And that's a big part of the reason that my success has been the way that it is I've been, as I've been going through, I have looked back on all the education that I got. I'm glad that I got some of it, a lot of it I actually do regret. There's been a lot of it. The good ones have had a massive ROI. I remember making my first $500,000, and that was, I think I paid in total $17,000 for that training program. I went through it, and so that was my first $500,000. And yeah, I mean, that was over, maybe like a 6-month period. So my next one, number 7, is I risk everything to start my business. And my story is I had my most valuable possession, which was my rifle at the time, and I lent it to my friend, and I said, listen, I don't have enough money to start this training program and run ads. Bank's not gonna give me a loan. I don't have credit cards. I need your help. And so I went to him with my rifle, my most valuable possession, the thing that I spend a lot of time with and sleep next to for my protection. Is I had to give it up. And so I gave it up in exchange for money. I said, hey, I'm gonna be back for this. I went and bought the program, started doing marketing, and it worked. Like instantly the next week I got an ROI from that, and that was fantastic. So I ended up getting my rifle back very soon after. So I'm gonna skip a couple of these. Number 10 is like, I'm the one in my family who's changed everything, which has been really interesting because I've changed a whole lot. I was, pretty much everyone else in my family went to college and had the basic career path, and I'm like, I'm gonna try something different, and it turned out pretty well so far for me. Next is, I believe this is day 2, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is day 2. So day 2 is when we started going over, what's called give and ask. So the whole point that everyone was there, this is when we really got into the meat and potatoes of everything, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. This was definitely why I wanted to come here. It was fantastic to get to see and hear all these other businesses, what they're struggling with, what they're interested. I met a guy who was going, he was at $90 million per year in revenue, and this guy didn't even have an org chart, which should be called an accountability chart. But without context, that doesn't make a lot of sense, and we'll get into that later. But he didn't even have an org chart, and he was able to make it to 90 million. And I'm over here with only like 1/10 or 1% of that. And I'm like, man, I need an org chart before that. And now I'm looking at him. It's like, oh man, I didn't have an org chart, and he got it to 90 million. Like, oh, I'm good. I can do this. No, don't recommend it. Definitely have like an accountability and org chart that'll help you grow and scale a lot easier. But it was very interesting to hear that he didn't have an org chart. And that was his reason. He was like, the whole reason I'm here is to figure out an org chart. And it's a really good point, because you think about it, what exactly is there gonna be on YouTube? Are you gonna search up on YouTube, org chart for business doing 90 million? How many videos are gonna pop up for that? A lot are probably gonna pop up, but not a lot of them are gonna be relevant. And also, how do you find, most important thing, like ChatGPT pretty much knows everything about everything to an extent, but it lacks context. And that's the hardest thing if you don't give ChatGPT or any sort of AI enough context, it's not gonna make right decisions. So if you ask it, hey, what's my org chart look like? Okay, well, what's your business? Where are you at? Like, what revenue stands? What do you already have in place? How big is your team? What is your physical location? There's so many questions that go into that really without the proper context, AI is not gonna be able to help you, nor is anything online, because you should only be so careful about the advice that you listen to online. So this HVAC business, I'm gonna kind of get into that now, which is really cool. This guy did an HVAC business. He has over 10,000 domains, and I currently about 1,000 of them are active domains. 1,000. That's insane. And he pretty much just does stuff in the US. He has a total of 120 employees, and 115 of them are overseas. So 5 employees in the US, 5 US-based employees. The rest are call centers or wherever else. And just the fact that he has that amount of domains, and he said, ChatGPT has really changed his business because he's able to launch SEO and pages for lead gen with SEO very rapidly. And so he can deploy, I think, like 800 pages a day or something, extra pages on those domains to be able to go for SEO plays as well, which I thought was really cool. And so he also built a custom CRM, which was really interesting. I'm sure he used the overseas labor for that one. And he was talking about how the the CRM, he talked to Service Titan, and Service Titan is a pretty expensive, I mean, I know people who are running pretty big operations with Service Titan that pay them tens of thousands of dollars a month. Like I said, there's someone paying $10,000 or $50,000 a month for a CRM. It's a $90,000 a month business, HVAC business in Canada, or home services business. He's paying $50,000 a month for one software. That's a CRM. Now, the amount of data that you get back from that is very high. That's really good, but I think it's also a little bit predatory having all these companies that are just SaaS to death. And I'm over here paying about, I think I'm paying about $6,000 a month for softwares, and I'm over here like not enjoying it. This guy's paying $50,000 a month for software, so good for him. That's amazing. So he was talking with Service Titan, and he didn't like the pricing, or didn't like how much they were. He's like, hey, is there any way that we can negotiate on price here? Service Titan said no, so he's like, all right, great. So he just ended up building Service Titan overseas for very cheap, and just now that he's using it himself, now he says it's better than Service Titan because he owns it, which I think is really cool. I definitely would love to do that as well someday. Trains up people to be service provider. So he has an HVAC business, and in order to get more talent for your business to be able to grow, sometimes you need to train other people up on how to be a technician or be able to work for your business. So what he does is he sells certifications for $2,000 and online, and they go through the portal, and if they're good enough, then they'll end up working with him. So end up getting paid for him to hire them, which is like the coolest thing ever. Like if every employee that applied for you had to pay you $500, wouldn't that be great? That'd be fantastic for the employer. Not so great for the employees though. And if they're good enough, and if they're not good enough for his company, then they're sold as technicians to other companies for $1,500. So this guy's maybe potentially making $3,500 on employees that aren't ever even gonna work with him just because he trained them up. And I think that was really cool. I was like, man, like I want to do a paid certification now for editing, and I think that'd be really cool. So I'm definitely gonna try that, just because we have a large need for editors with what we do. And then usually what he'll do is he'll split the profit margins with the actual technicians 50%, which is pretty cool to be able to do. So this is day 3 now, and we talked sort of about vibrations and meditations, and all information is all around us. For example, if you know the difference between blue light and red light, and there's this obviously pretty common right now, when you go to bed, you just want to go more towards red light. If I'm not mistaken, red light is like a calmer frequency, whereas blue light is has a higher frequency, so is much more stress inducing. Don't quote me on that. I don't even know if that's even close to being correct, but we talked a lot about information and how like everything has a natural frequency, which is a pretty, like it's not, I know it's very interesting to say like, oh, that's kind of out there. Well, it's a little bit out there, but it's also factually correct to say that everything has a natural vibration of something or another, and that you'd want to be around certain vibrations. So if you could find an ideal life, what would that be? The next topic that we went over to is what would that ideal life look like for you? And write down 2 columns for your business. And if you want to decide this for yourself, write down 2 columns for your business. On the left side is love, and on the right side is didn't love. And these are the things that one person had wrote down. What the things that they loved is they loved growing the business. They loved learning and teaching. They loved helping others. They loved the persistence of being able to do it. They loved negotiations. Those are all the things that they loved in their business. All the things that they didn't love in their business was taking the time and freedom away from them. And they didn't love the exiting. And I thought that was really cool because I got to see what someone else loved and didn't love about business, which is actually pretty close to what I think about business and what the things that I did or didn't love. And so when you think about your ideal life, whether it be in business, whatever it may be, then going to really going about the what you did and didn't love is a great way to think about the direction you want to take your life, whatever it may be. I mean, if like, for example, if you want to be a doctor and you love school, well, do that, of course, right? That's something that you're going to be really fun. The next part is a ClickFunnels diagram, which is very complicated, and so we won't really talk about that, but essentially how most businesses can make very simple digital products. And the way that this person worked at ClickFunnels, which is really cool to hear about, is they made any sort of ClickFunnels, they tested it for a week, and if they didn't have at least a 1.1 ROAS, then they just would turn off the ad altogether. And they'd usually have a small product that was anywhere from $8 to $10, and then they have an upsell on a course, and then upsell on a class, and then they'd have a calendar time to be able to book in a page for something else, whatever it may be. So that would be those are kind of the ClickFunnels model that I'm thinking about. Actually, I'm going to put into my business as well. And so the next thing is a community, content, and communication. So these were a Venn diagram of these three circles, and those three circles are being community, content, and communication. When it comes to a business, the way to create a business that is very strong and lasts for a very long time is to build a very strong community, have really good content, and then also have really good communication around that community and content. So I thought that was really interesting, and how one of the things that I want to be able to introduce into my ecosystem as well. So the next thing is use community managers from overseas, Philippines, to be able to manage your community really easy. So they were talking specifically about setting up a Facebook group if you wanted some sort of community in your business. So that was really interesting. And then also make an FAQs page that the VAs can reference. So for example, if you know the top 100 questions or top 50 questions, whatever it may be for you, that people ask inside of the Facebook group, and you have these VAs over the Philippines that are just watching the Facebook group answering questions all the time, they're going to be more likely to buy from you because they think, oh wow, every person from this company is really helpful, all my questions are being answered. By the time that they are really finished asking all their questions in the community, they're more than likely going to buy your product because they have all their concerns and questions answered. So that was really interesting. All right, the next step here, 4 principles of sales. And keep in mind, this is from a guy who started, I think they were sitting around 800 million right now in revenue. And he scaled this company, I think it was in like 2 or 3 years, that he got from like zero, from a startup, to over 800 million in building a sales team. And these are the 4 principles that he suggested. So this stuff takes a lot of weight and like has a lot of like, why should you listen to me? Social proof. That's why. So number 1 is yes or no, no maybe. And I really like this because we see this a lot. It's like, maybe is just really a nice way of saying no. And I wish people would just be more willing to say no, which is fine. But they don't do that, and that's okay. So yes or no, no maybe. And if you pre-frame the call, depending on your experience in sales or stuff like that, I think that just pre-framing it and saying, hey, can we just agree to get a yes or no? Because no, maybe is just a nice way of saying no. And getting someone who's committed or not committed, that you can work with it. You can work with a yes or no. You can't work with a maybe, because maybe is just doesn't make a lot of sense. And number 2 is always make the sale within 24 to 48 hours. Now we've scheduled 3 days out right now, but they said, don't schedule calls out more than 24 to 48 hours in your sales team, because the buying rate goes way down. And so obviously you want to make sure that your calendar is open enough to be able to facilitate that. And I see this all the time too. When I go to like these little smaller companies, nothing against them, they'll book out like months in advance. I'm like, you think someone's going to book for 2 months from now and still going to show up to that call and buy from you? They're not going to know what they have. You probably don't remember what you had for dinner last week. I know I sure don't, but I do know I was fed, and it was some pretty darn good food too. So what I'm getting at there is, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think that if you're going to build something where you want people to buy and they fill out an application, or they want to book a call with someone, they usually want that sooner rather than later. Number 3, 100% of the deal done. No half sales, and make sure that you complete the deal. So what it means by that is, because they had a very high attrition rate, meaning they would get a lot of people who said, yes, I'm interested in this service. Yes, I want to go forward with it. But there's a lot of people who would back out of the service at the last minute or whatever. They would just say, well, let's cancel the contract. So they would say yes, but then they would cancel the contract. So you want to make sure you get a full deal done, not a half a sale. Get the whole thing done on that call, because you can't move forward with something that's like, I think I'm in, maybe we'll give it a shot. And they also had this issue with it being, oh, you can just cancel the contract. If you say that, people are going to do that. So don't tell them that. So even if you do have that sort of policy, you can use that as like a change your mind thing. Sure, if that's like if there's someone who's not wanting to buy, and that's something that you can do in order to get them to buy, ethically, of course, then great, you can have that as a tool as your arsenal. But if you're telling every single person, oh, by the way, you can just cancel this in 3 days if you don't like it, then what do you think people are going to do? They're going to cancel it in 3 days because they don't like it. So make sure that you get a full sale, and then also be careful, because not all the time people need to know all the information. Now, number 4 of the 4 sales principles from a $800 million company that was like went from 0 to 800 million in about 3 years. Number 4, stop lying to yourself. Most people think that they are special. Most people think that, oh, well, I'm going to be that exception, that I have such a high close rate, or I'm so much better than everyone else, and everyone's just going to want to buy from me, or I'm just going to get lucky and all the doors that I knock on are going to be the ones who say yes. Well, you're not special. That's not how people work. And yeah, sorry, you just got to put in hard work and also good leverage. So that was interesting. Stop lying to yourself. And I think that was specifically talking about people who, specifically for sales, people would lie to themselves and think they was just the greatest salesperson in the world, and they probably really weren't. So that was stop lying to yourself. The next part is this was the business owner who's doing $90,000 or $90 million a year, and he didn't have an org chart. And it was really cool to see. He's in the HVAC business in Canada. Really cool dude to hear, listen to his funny stories. As it was drawn out to me, and I will see if I can maybe put something here on screen as well. There is the CEO and the COO are on top, and to go along with, I'm gonna actually definitely have to put a picture here just because how much this is. One person's the visionary, the other person's the integrator. Visionary and integrator, CEO and COO, maybe in title only. Then you go under that, and there's different types of ways that you can structure your business. Now, specifically for him, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 departments that he had, now you could have less, that he suggested for this business owner doing 80 million without a structure right now was a financial side, a sales side, a marketing side, an HR and recruitment side, a director of operations, so that's installation, inventory, customer service, etc., and then a tech arm if possible. So those are the things that he suggested under his org chart. And once again, to go back to this is where we got into the difference between accountability chart and not org chart. So we talked about team structure and what that looks like. And then I'm going to put a picture of this as well, because this just gets into like way too much stuff here to be able to articulate without actually seeing a picture of it. But most anyone can manage is 8 people at a time. So you really shouldn't have anything over 8 people under you at a time. I think that it's actually closer to 5. I probably wouldn't have anyone more than 5 people at a time. And then also to be careful about how you use the word manage, because managers are not always the most efficient thing to have around. Sometimes it's better to instead have a high quality group of people. Like you could, in a lot of these scenarios, you could actually just completely fire the manager, promote one of the technicians halfway to like, hey, you're in charge of this, not managing these people, and then just pay everyone more or hire in better talent. And there you go. That's a great way to get, you can remove this manager and instead you can have someone be accountable for the numbers in this small group of people that is no more than 8 people. All right, so in the team structure, this is from top to bottom what this was look like, and this was told to me, if you're growing a company and you're scaling it, have people build the ladder out from under them. So if you are someone who is one of the early people in a startup company, you have to build out the people under you, and that's the only way that you can get promoted, is by building the company team, because it's in their interest, it's in the company's interest, it's in everyone's interest to build the ladder out under them. And so you have to find the right people to do that. So from top to bottom, you get the visionary, and then you have the integrator. Under that, you have the C-suite level of people. Then you have the senior vice presidents, or SVPs. Then you have the vice presidents. Then you have the senior directors. Then you have the directors. Then you have the managers. Then you have the team leads. And then you have the techs. So that's really how that's done. And then it's broken down into different units based off of this structure. Number one is there's business units, and then under that there's divisions. Under those divisions there's departments, and under those departments there's teams. So you can go back to that and listen to that a few times, and you can kind of understand how you would segment out different parts of the business. And maybe I'll put a graphic here for people to be able to see as well. So the visionary is on top now of the integrator, and the visionary works on the business, and the integrator works in the business. 2 people at the top, 1 person has to be above everyone else, because you obviously need a leader, and someone needs to be directing people to where they really should be going. And the visionary and the integrator is the president, or the 1 person above the visionary, and the integrator is the president or the COO. And this is roughly when you first get started. This was an alternate to, so this was this person's org chart or accountability chart, as we should be calling them, for the $80 million HVAC business, which was the departments that I laid out earlier. But he said, if you're just starting out, this is how you can have your org chart look at first. You can have the visionary on top, the integrator right in the middle of the visionary and the right in between the visionary and the business itself. And then under the integrator, you're going to have sales, operations, and finance. Now, under sales or next to sales, you can add on later marketing, and under operations should be the tech area. And then what's odd is finance should also be in contact a lot with the visionary, and specifically HR, because the visionary needs to know what's going on in the company, and HR is also really important to, I can't remember why. It was really interesting to hear why HR was under finance. I can't remember why, but it was really cool that HR is under finance. It's not under operations, which I thought it was. If you're enjoying the video, then go ahead and leave a comment below on some of the questions that you might have on the video or anything that it comes to business. I will read all of them, and I will try to actually answer your questions. Also, if you'd like to come to a mastermind just like this, go ahead and click the link below, and it'll have an area where you can find out more information about the mastermind that I'm hosting if you're serious about growing and scaling your business. So every role needs 3 KPIs max. So as you're building out your accountability structure and chart for this, every role only needs 3 KPIs, no more. That is all. And every single week, you should have 1 meeting up and 1 meeting down. So this is specifically on your accountability chart, is if you have 1 meeting up with the department above you, talking about your 3 KPIs, and then 1 meeting down, talking about your 3 KPIs for no more than 60 minutes per week. Go over your KPIs, to-do list, and recap of your first meeting the prior week. So what did the prior week look like? Did you get KPIs met and stuff like that? And then when you're building your company, build down, not up. And also, side tangent on that I didn't actually write down, which I thought was really cool, was if you're a new company, hire people who are techs and then tell them the only way that you're going to get promoted is if you build people under you. Because if you just say, hey, you're the senior vice president of sales or marketing, whatever, they're going to want the money that's associated with that role. And so you generally want to avoid doing that, because that gets very costly and expensive to be able to pay someone a C-suite level, because they're paying for the title and not necessarily the actual work that they're doing instead. All right, so next one is don't silo people, because if you silo people, they're not gonna be talking to each other. That's how you stifle ideas and things like that, which is not how you create a successful long-term business. And 10 KPIs max as the CEO, you really should not have, if you only had 10 KPIs max as the CEO to see the health of your business, what would they be? And I really like that, because it was saying, if you had to just really simplify things in your business, instead of having 50 different numbers that you have to pay attention to, only 10 KPIs max as a CEO of the company, what would those 10 KPIs be? Okay, so make a growth chart for, after you've done and kind of made your accountability chart, make a growth chart for 5 years from now and reverse revenue with your goals. So whatever your goals of your company is, write out what the company structure would look like after you now know what a company structure looks like. Write down what you want it to look like in 5 years from now, and then just start working backwards from there. And then what's really cool is making an SOP for making SOPs, which SOP stands for Standard Operating Procedures, which I thought was really cool. And if you have that, you can allow other people to create SOPs for you. And SOPs are assets and very important parts of your business. I wrote down here again, create culture in all caps, because it's important to have culture. And equity, the equity that they give them is not necessarily equal to the role. So as in, if someone's a C-suite executive, they don't need 50% of the company. They might need a smaller percentage, but you don't want to give them just like giant slots of equity early on. You can give them shares, and we'll get into that later as well. So this is if you sat down with so as a CEO, you should sit down with some of your employees and you should ask them these questions. And these questions should be, what would you do if you had $1 million in the company? Because oftentimes the lower accountability employees that are more like techs, they're going to have some pretty good ideas on what they would do if they were given $1 million to be able to do whatever they wanted with. And if you were the CEO, what would you do? So ask them those two questions. I could not find any of the other questions that I wanted to ask people, but those were two questions that I would sit down and ask someone if I wanted to go to lunch with them. If you're a CEO and wanting to. All right, day 2, give/ask. Now, Matt Thomas, this guy was awesome. He had a cookie company that he was franchising. Now, most people don't even franchise within the first 5 years. They don't even sell any franchises. This guy managed to sell over 36 franchises in the first year. And this cookie company is now doing $10 million, which I think is one of the coolest things ever. And one of the things that I really liked about him, think about like a crumble cookie company, but way better. And that is roughly what he was doing, or insomnia cookies if you're in different areas. That is roughly what it looks like. But the thing that he did differently was his unique selling point was quality. And all of his ingredients were very high quality. And instead of all these other cookie companies that are just using like a Betty Crocker or whatever, some really basic off the store cookie that if you wanted to buy one, you should just go to the store instead of going to actual place to get cookies. Everything's made from scratch there. And he was really interested in a couple different things on how he can scale. One of them was using franchisors to invest and then maybe buy back the locations in the future and then turn it into like a Panda Express type model and then own everything. So what I mean by that is when you sell a franchise, you're not getting a lot of the upside because you're having to give it to an operator. And what Panda Express did was, because the model worked so well, they originally, when they first started, sold a couple franchises to get started, to make sure that it worked, and then they started opening their own locations. And because the money was so good, they were able to buy those locations outright and actually make a profit from them. So the same thing with this one is he might sell franchises early to get people on board with this and to open up more locations, and then buy them back later so that he owns more of the upside. And the next thing that he was looking for was he wants to build a marketing department and work on his mission statement. Now, his mission statement was, Cookie Co. bakes cookies for any occasion and a great experience. And he wanted to change it up a little bit and make it a little bit more simple, or change the method. I don't remember because we didn't end up going with anything. We just said that like, hey, you should probably change that because it's a little bit long. And his mission statement is also pretty big. And so Chris Lee, the guy who's hosting the event, was going and saying, here, when I built SoulGen, which is the $800 million company, that does solar, he says, his mission statement is building a brighter future for our people, SoulGen Power, which is really cool. I like that. And he was thinking, hey, so how do I build a marketing department? And part of that was leveraging OPA, or other people's audience, to get eyes on your offer. And this one's really great because instead of paying for marketing or ads, whatever it may be, you can use OPA, other people's audiences. And this could be maybe reaching out to influencers, local pages. There's tons of ways. People with lots of followers, anything that has lots of followers, that's an example of someone else's audience that you can leverage and use that way. And use local pages to launch with cookies. So local company pages, I mean, and also local pages on Facebook and Instagram, stuff like that. And launch with a free cookie, and then follow. So the exchange is, hey, I'm going to give away cookies, then follow, download, like, and share. And what was interesting was there was a company that there's a business that I lived in, or there was a town that I lived in early on when I was younger. And this town was roughly around, I think, 15,000 population. And there was a new location there that was selling coffee. Now, of course, you have your Starbucks because it's every place in the U.S. that has a Starbucks. And in order to compete with a Starbucks, when he opened his coffee shop, he had a sign, this like a magnetic sign that he put on his car and a sticker, and parked it right in front of the Starbucks, which was legal, despite Starbucks trying to push back on it. He made sure that was legal because it was a car parked there legally. And he parked his car there and said, free coffee at my coffee shop. And his coffee shop was pretty close to there. I mean, it was maybe like 2 minutes away or something. But you can imagine a sign that says free coffee versus Starbucks. They won a lot of business that day. Now, of course, everyone's like, you're crazy. Why would you do this? This is all, you're just giving away all this stuff. And that's true. But when he first opened, after he gave away his coffee, that was the biggest month for him revenue wise. And after that, he went from like I think his average was somewhere, profit wise was 10K. So maybe he was about 30K per month. He jumped up to like 80K that month, and then maybe kind of hovered somewhere around like 50K after that, because he just won all these people over who, and I still love this business to this day. So it's a great business. And I thought that was really cool. So the same thing with cookies is, if you give away free cookies to start off with, everyone's going to know your name. And yes, you're going to have to give away a lot of money. Yes, you're spending a lot of money on that, but the returns that you're going to get on the back end is way better. The next thing that we went over was a guy who owns an apple orchard, which is so cool. He has really nice profit margins, somewhere around 81%. And these wonderful, this apple orchard, he uses, I think, 30 acres of land and is able to make enough apples. He overproduces how many apples that he needs to make quite a good living for himself with very, very little labor. And on top of that, he's looking to expand, and his cider is very high quality. It was really cool to taste different ciders, and it was not something that I was expecting. It's nice because I don't really like drinking, so you have this unique experience with apple cider. We didn't really talk a whole lot about it. It was more just like a tasting and sort of how to be able to buy more land and expand his orchard, which is not a lot I wrote down there. So disc profile was the next thing that we talked about. Disc profile and hiring, and I'm actually kind of building out a program on how I can use the disc profile in hiring, figuring out what personality does really well and what position. So that's the disc profile hiring. And tell all team members about disc profiles. That was a note to myself, because disc is really important. So we're gonna test everyone, figuring out how people can work together using the disc profile. The 6 thinking hats method, which is not the disc profile, which is an interesting thing that was made. Use disc profile for personal files and understanding how to handle people. So for example, if you're in a company or business and you know that this other person is a certain disc profile, you know how to talk to them better, because maybe they're very personality, they're a very driven, a high D, a high I, which is what I am. So that would be decisive and influensive. Next one is open loop versus closed loop, is ideas versus what have we chosen to do. So he said this because oftentimes the CEO would just throw ideas out there, and that was open loop. And that was just like, because I like thinking out loud, or I'll think in a team and I'll kind of mention a few ideas and be like, wait, why would you do that? I didn't ask you to do that. As well as because we were doing brainstorming and I had mentioned a few things and they had all implemented that. And I was like, wait a second, that's not what I meant. And versus closed loop ideas is, this is what we have to do. So if you're talking about ideas with your team, open loop is, we're just throwing out ideas out there. Then closed loop is, okay, I actually want to follow through with what I just said. So that's the difference between closed loop and open loop thinking. The 6 thinking hats, I have a PDF on that one, but I don't actually know. All I remember was there's different times and different hats that you're wearing, and one of them is like the idea hat, one of them is the optimist hat, the pessimist hat, and there's there's 6 of them, but it's really cool. I'll see if I can find any information on that. So partnership versus partnership or ownership. There is a honeymoon phase of about 6 months when you're working with someone, or business partner of some sort. So this is changing topics now. And this was talking about compensation and how to compensate some of the people there. And you never really want to give out equity. You definitely want to give out shares. So when you're bringing someone on and they have some sort of equity or shares incentive, there is a 6-month period where let's say they get 4% overstrike. I don't actually know what overstrike means, but all I know is 4% overstrike. I wrote that down and I heard that and I never expanded on that, so I don't know what that is, but I'll figure it out later. 4% overstrike, so 4% is what they are going to get when it comes to whatever the shares are. 6 months, they get 2%. At 18 months, they get 2% with a 3-year clawback. So in 18 months from now, they're going to get all 4% of their shares, and they get a 3-year clawback period. So if for any reason that they leave over the 3 years, they can't just sell their shares for no reason. And there's a difference between Class A shares and Class B shares. Class A shares are for managing partners, and these are people who are managing. And Class B shares are for general partners or partners. And always make sure that shares, make sure to give shares, not equity, one's in all caps, and you can dilute shares later on when you're bringing on more people, which is really important because I should have realized that a little bit earlier on of not giving out equity. Instead, I should have given out shares, because you can always dilute shares and make them less valuable over time. It's a lot easier for someone to say, oh, you're getting, it's a lot worse for someone to kind of go down the amount of equity that they have. But if they go down and, like, let's say they have 2% worth of shares, and their shares are now equal to 1.98% of their original share value, they're usually not going to be too upset about it, especially when the company is growing like that. So they're still going to get some good shares there. So this was really cool. This guy had a mold remediation and water damage restoration company, which was really neat. And I loved hearing his story and his business. It was very cool to listen to this guy's dedication, and like, he was so dedicated to what he was doing. I really liked that quite a bit. He's currently answering the phone right now, and I was like, dude, you gotta change that. You gotta. Everyone there agreed that you should get someone else answering your phone as soon as possible, so that it frees up more of your time. The next thing is use ChatGPT to write SOPs, job listings, and prompts should be a good prompt on ChatGPT should be at least 500 words. And then he also needs a business plan plus KPIs and numbers for all of, because he's generally, I think he's under $1 million right now, and he's just now starting off. And most importantly for him, he's looking to hire. And I was like, well, hiring funnel, that's a great way to do it. And there's different ways to hire. Now, I prefer certain companies over others. There's a lot of HR companies out there. I like to find an HR software that can also do application management system. An example of this is Bamboo HR. I don't actually like the company itself. All I know is the software works really well, and I use it reluctantly. But they have some pretty good applicant tracking systems, and I think it automatically posts to Indeed and stuff like that, where they just go to apply to a page, and then you have it's like if you've ever used a CRM or customer relationship management system, you would know that there are different stages in a pipeline where your prospects are at, and depending on where your prospects are at, that's going to be how warm or cold they are to whatever the next step is. So for your applicant management system, it's like that, where you can track who you've interviewed, notes on them, why you've said certain things like that. So it's pretty useful. So that was his business, and really some of the things that we were told, hey, make commitments on, like, what are 3 commitments that you want to do out of this? I only ended up with 2. One of them was spend more on marketing. The next one was figure out an offer. Figure out that offer is a service, not marketing. So what I mean by that was I originally messed up and made the mistake of thinking that my product needed to have an ROI, when in reality it was just a service, and video is a service, not marketing. And so I shouldn't be selling or guaranteeing an ROI on a service. So when you go to buy an AC unit, you're not buying it because of some sort of ROI. You're buying it because it's an HVAC, an AC unit. You're buying a service. So you're guaranteeing that the product will work or operate as intended, but no results will come from that. And you can show past results and stuff like that. And so that's with video production. Instead of saying there's some sort of guarantee there, or this is marketing or ROI, whatever it is, take the focus away from ROI and say this is video as a service. You can buy it or you don't have to buy it, and that is what it is. So that's roughly those are some of the things that I learned. And then of course there's like, if you are marketing and it is ROI based, like, make it an ROI thing. It has to be an ROI thing. I agree with that, but that's roughly what that looks like. So yeah, I mean, all in all, those are the 3 days. The last day there was pretty cool. We got to learn quite a bit, mostly networking, and it was definitely, it was interesting to see, like, a lot of people left on, like, day 2. So there was very few people left on, like, day 3, and it was just kind of sad to see that not everyone had wanted to stay the whole time there. It was a very good event. We did, like, cold plunges. We did a hot tub at one point, which was pretty fun. We did some shooting stuff. So it was nice to do all this fun stuff, but it was one of those things where I was like, if I'm paying to be here, I would rather actually sit and learn. And there was one event that I went to about a year ago, and it was a 2-day event, And I learned more in that 2-day event than I had more notes from that 2-day event than I had from this 3-day event. But the 3-day event was with higher level and different kind of people, which is fine. Another thing that I learned was I don't like golf and I don't want to do golf, but it was suggested to me by multiple people that if I'm going to get to the level that I want in business, some people do not have the time of day until you give them a tee time. And I think that with the example was mentioned, there was an investment banker that they wanted to talk to because they wanted to raise some capital for their business. And this person didn't have any time for them. So instead, what the business did is, hey, tea time is at 9 a.m. and I'm going to send the jet to go pick you up at your location so we can do golf together. And when you spend 7 or whatever, 4 to 7 hours, depending on the course, whatever it is, golf with someone, they know you really well and they're more willing to invest in your business. And it was just kind of interesting to hear that, because it's not what I wanted to hear. I think that it's very interesting to hear the human condition about golf and stuff like that, and like, why would I have to play golf to like, if the numbers make sense, why would it matter if we had to play golf or not? So you can actually book a call with our team down below, and we personally can go in and help grow and scale your company. The little goodie that I have at the end for you is my notes. I left my notes in a drive link down there, and you can actually go through this video again or review my notes that I have for the entire time that I was there.